Your neighbor Greg just made the worst financial decision of his life, and everyone congratulated him. He threw a party, posted on Facebook. His wife cried happy tears. What did he do? He paid off his mortgage, sent the bank a check for $42,000, every penny he had left after draining his emergency fund and cashing out a small inheritance. The American dream, right? Free and clear. Owns his home. Zero debt. 6 months later, Greg loses his job, tech layoffs. His entire department gone. He's got zero income, zero savings, and $500,000 of equity locked inside walls he can't eat. He goes to the bank for a home equity line of credit, and they laugh him out of the building. No job, no loan. Greg is sitting inside a pile of gold, and he's starving to death. This is not a hypothetical. This is happening right now to thousands of people who made the responsible choice. I'm going to explain why a paid-off house is not the safe asset you think it is, why it might actually be the most dangerous thing sitting on your balance sheet, and why keeping your mortgage forever, dragging it out for 30 years while inflation eats the bank alive, might be the smartest financial decision you never learned about. I built a retirement calculator, completely free, that shows you exactly what this decision costs over decades. It's based on the same institutional formulas that Vanguard and BlackRock use. Hundreds of people have already run their numbers and realized they've been setting their own money on fire. I'll ask for your email because I don't want to store your financial data. I just send you the report. You can play with the numbers, see what happens if you get 1% more return. What if you add $500 a month? Here's the core mental model. Your house is not your wealth. Your house is a vault. Equity is cash that walked into that vault and never came back out. It produces nothing. It pays no dividends. It generates no interest. It just sits there, locked up, doing absolutely nothing until you sell the house or convince a bank to lend against it. When you send extra money to your mortgage, you're not investing. You're converting liquid dollars into illiquid bricks. You're taking money that could work for you and stuffing it into a box you can't open without permission. Think about it this way. A bank borrows money from you through your savings account at 0.5% interest. Then they lend that exact same money back to you as a mortgage at 6%. They keep the spread. That's how banks print money. They live on arbitrage. The difference between what they borrow at and what they lend at. You can do the exact same thing in reverse, but you have to be willing to hold the debt. If you've got a mortgage at 4% and you can invest in the market at 8%, that 4% spread is pure profit. It's free money created by leverage. But most people kill this machine on purpose because debt feels scary. Here's where it gets interesting. Let's say you've got $100,000 sitting in your savings account. You've got two options. Option one, send it to the bank, pay down $100,000 of your 4% mortgage. You save $4,000 a year in interest. Feels good, feels responsible. Option two, invest that $100,000 in a boring S&P 500 index fund averaging 8%. You earn $8,000 a year. The difference between those two choices is $4,000 annually. Not just once, every single year. Compounding. Over 30 years, that decision, just that one decision to invest instead of pay down debt, is worth hundreds of thousands of dollars in future wealth. You traded that away for a feeling. Now, you might be thinking, but Tom, debt is risky. What if the market crashes? What if I lose my job? Here's the thing. Most people define risk as owing money. I define risk as not having access to money. This is the liquidity problem, and it's invisible until it destroys you. When you pay extra principal towards your mortgage, that money vanishes. It goes into equity. Equity is dead. It sits there like a corpse. You can't spend it, you can't eat it, you can't use it to pay your electric bill or fix your car. It's trapped until you sell the house, which takes months and costs a fortune in fees, or until you borrow against it, which requires the bank's permission. Banks lend money to people who don't need it. If you're employed, great credit, stable income, they'll give you a home equity line all day long. But the moment you lose your job, your credit tanks, or the housing market drops, that equity might as well not exist. You are sitting in a $500,000 house with $0 in your checking account, and the bank will not help you. Compare that to the person who kept the mortgage and invested the extra payments. They've got $200,000 in a brokerage account. They lose their job, no problem. They sell some index funds, they pay the mortgage for 3 years while they figure it out. Who is actually safer? The person with the paid off house and zero liquidity, or the person with the mortgage and cash in the bank? The person with cash has options. The person with equity has a roof and a prayer. Let me give you a real scenario with real numbers. Meet Sarah. She's 43, makes $90,000 a year. She's got a $300,000 mortgage at 3.5%. Her payment is $1,347 a month. She's been listening to talk radio, and she decides to get aggressive. She starts sending an extra $1,000 a month toward the principal. She's gonna pay this thing off in 12 years instead of 30. She feels like a warrior. Fast forward 8 years. She's paid in an extra $96,000 of principal. Then her company downsizes. She's out. She's got $12,000 left in savings because everything else went to the mortgage. Her monthly expenses, even cutting everything to the bone, are $3,000. Mortgage, property taxes, insurance, utilities, food. She's got 4 months of runway. She goes to the bank for a home equity line of credit. They decline her. No income. Her equity is worth maybe $150,000 at this point, but she cannot access it. She starts missing mortgage payments by month 6. Foreclosure process begins. She loses the house. Now rewind. Same Sarah. Same extra $1,000 a month. But instead of paying down the mortgage, she invests it. Low-cost index fund, historical 8% return. After 8 years, she's got about $120,000 in her brokerage account. She loses her job. She's calm. She sells enough index funds each month to cover her expenses. That $120,000 buys her 3 years of runway. 3 years to find a new job, retrain, pivot, start a business, whatever. She keeps the house. She stays solvent. The only difference between these two Sarahs is where they put the extra $1,000. One stuffed it into a vault. One kept it liquid. One lost everything. One survived. Here's the part that really makes my brain hurt. Inflation. Inflation is the silent wealth transfer from savers to debtors, and most people are on the wrong side of it. When you take out a 30-year fixed-rate mortgage, you are locking in your housing cost. Principal and interest never change, but the value of the dollar collapses every single year. Let's say your mortgage payment is $2,000 a month right now. That might feel like a lot. It's probably 20, maybe 25% of your income. But in 2046, assuming 3% inflation, which is conservative, $2,000 will have the purchasing power of roughly $800 in today's money. Your income, if it even keeps pace with inflation, will have doubled. You'll be paying off that loan with absolutely worthless dollars compared to what you borrowed. The bank is the one losing. They lent you valuable $2,026, and you're paying them back with monopoly money in 2046. By rushing to pay off the mortgage, you're destroying this advantage. You're paying the bank back with strong dollars instead of weak ones. You are giving them a gift. Inflation is your friend when you're a debtor. You should drag that loan out as long as possible and let time eat the real value of the debt. Let's talk about opportunity cost, which is just a fancy way of saying the money you never made because you killed it before it could grow. Say you've got a $2,000 mortgage payment. You decide to pay an extra $1,000 a month to knock it out in 15 years. You feel like Dave Ramsey is going to give you a medal. But here's the invisible cost. If you took that same $1,000 a month and put it in an S&P 500 index fund for 15 years, assuming 10% average annual return, you'd have about $420,000. But let's keep going. You don't stop after 15 years. You keep the mortgage for the full 30 years. You keep investing that $1,000 a month. At year 30, your investment account is worth approximately $2.3 million. Meanwhile, the person who rushed to pay off the house has a paid off house worth maybe $700,000. Home appreciation happens whether you have a mortgage or not, and zero in investments. The difference in net worth is over $1.5 million. That's the cost of wanting to feel debt-free. That's an expensive emotion. Most people tell themselves a story. They say, once the house is paid off, then I'll start investing. Then I'll really build wealth. But here's what actually happens. Parkinson's law. Your expenses expand to fill your income. The moment that mortgage payment disappears, you don't sweep that money into a brokerage account. You upgrade your car. You take nicer vacations. You buy things you've been putting off. The surplus gets absorbed. You never invest it. By keeping the mortgage, you enforce discipline. You have to budget for the payment every month, which keeps lifestyle creep in check and forces you to deliberately choose where the surplus goes. There's also an asset protection angle nobody talks about. Let's say you get sued, divorce, business dispute, car accident, whatever. If you own your house free and clear, 100% equity, that is an incredibly juicy target for creditors and attorneys. It's sitting right there on your balance sheet. Easy to find, easy to go after. But if you've got a mortgage for 80% of the home's value, there's very little equity to steal. The bank owns most of it. You look poor on paper, high debt, low net worth. You're an unattractive target. Meanwhile, your actual wealth is sitting in brokerage accounts, retirement accounts, possibly in entities and structures that are much harder to pierce. Debt creates a liability shield. It makes you look broke while you're actually rich. That's a feature, not a bug. Now, I know what you're thinking. Tom, you're not factoring in risk. What if the market crashes right when I need the money? What if I retire and I can't make the payment anymore? These are valid concerns, but they're solved by the exact same liquidity buffer we've been talking about. In the scenario where you're investing instead of paying down the house, you've got a massive pile of cash growing on the side. If the market crashes, you still have the principal. You didn't lose it all. If you retire and you're worried about making the payment, you use the investment income to cover the mortgage. A $500,000 portfolio yielding 4% in dividends gives you $20,000 a year. That pays an $1,800 mortgage with room left over. You're functionally debt-free because your assets cover the liability, but you still control the principal. That's actual financial independence. Handing all your cash to the bank means you lose control. You're asking for permission to access your own wealth. I want to be clear. There is exactly one scenario where paying off the mortgage early makes sense. If your interest rate is significantly higher than what you can reliably earn in the market. If you're sitting on an 8 or 9% mortgage because you bought in a high rate environment, then yes, pay it down. That's a guaranteed 8 or 9% return, and that beats the market. Or if you are psychologically incapable of investing, if you know for a fact that if you don't pay the mortgage, you're going to blow that money on nonsense, then fine, use the mortgage as a forced savings account. But if you're watching this, I'm assuming you're trying to optimize. You're trying to build real wealth. For the disciplined investor, a low interest mortgage is one of the best financial instruments you will ever have access to. To pay it off early is to destroy a below market loan that lets you leverage your wealth. We might never see rates like this again. This requires a psychological shift. You have to stop treating debt like a moral failure. Debt is a tool. Corporations use debt. Governments use it. The wealthy use it to amplify returns and maintain liquidity. Only the middle class is taught that all debt is evil, that we need to rush to zero. But zero is fragile. Zero leverage means zero amplification. Zero liquidity means zero options when life goes sideways. And it always goes sideways. Here's what you do. Stop making extra principal payments today. Take that extra $200, $500, $1,000 you've been sending to the bank every month. Open a separate brokerage account. Call it your Freedom Fund or your Dragon account. I don't care. And set up an automatic transfer for that same amount into a low-cost S&P 500 index fund. Then forget about it. Let it grow. In 10 years, compare the balance of that account to the interest you saved by not paying down the mortgage. You will see the math with your own eyes. You will see that you're tens, maybe hundreds of thousands of dollars richer. More importantly, if you have an emergency tomorrow, you can access that money. You can sell shares. You cannot access the extra payment you sent to the bank 6 months ago. That money is gone. It walked into the vault and the door closed. We need to stop optimizing for this fuzzy feeling of being debt-free based on advice from our grandparents who lived through 14% mortgage rates. That world is gone. We need to optimize for having a fortress of liquid, invested capital that can survive any crisis. A paid-off house is a trophy. A $2 million brokerage account is an army. I would much rather have the army. So here's your 3-step game plan. 1, keep the mortgage as long as humanly possible. Drag it out. Let inflation eat it alive. 2, invest every dollar you would have sent to extra principal. Automate it so you don't have to think about it. 3, build a liquidity buffer equal to at least 2 years of expenses in accessible accounts. That's your real safety net, not home equity. If you do these 3 things, you will be wealthier, safer, and more financially resilient than 95% of people walking around thinking they're winning because they're debt-free. They're not winning, they're just broke with a nice house. Lazy investing built more fortune than crypto memes. Don't light your money on fire trying to impress people who don't understand how wealth actually works.